This is the saying of our teachers on the pasuk L'Dov Kabay. We started this, but again to get the flow of things here, that the pasuk, the Torah commands us L'Dov Kabay, cleave to Hashem. So the pasuk, our sages say, Shekol Davek b'Talmid Chacham, that if you cleave to the Talmid Chacham, Malal Avakasov, the pasuk considers Kilin Idvik b'Shechina Mamash, as if you cleave to the Shechina, to the divine presence. And we ask the question, or as many commentators ask the question on this Gemara, on this statement, that the Gemara itself asks, actually, the Rebbe doesn't bring over here the question. The Gemara asks the question, could one really cleave to the divine presence? The divine presence is transcendent. It's God. So how can one cleave to the divine presence? The Gemara says that when one cleaves to the Talmid Chacham, it's as if he cleaves to the Shekhinah. So we asked the question last week, again, just to recap, that it's as if you're saying that you want someone to get 100, and you say, you can't get 100, it's almost impossible to get 100 in this very complicated exam, so I want you to get 80. In the end, so why do you start with 100? If you want the person, if you feel that you can expect from him 80%, why do you start with 100? In other words, the Gemara, the Torah says, cleave to Hashem. The Gemara says, how could you cleave to Hashem? Because you can cleave to Hashem. So the Gemara says, cleave to the Talmid Chacham. So why do you start with cleaving to Hashem? So based on what we explained in the last two classes, and in depth last week, that the Talmid Chacham, because by him, this whole transformation from his neshama, which is it's an original godly state, as it descends through one world and another world, doesn't have any impact on him. So the godly reality, the godly neshama, which is so apparent, in other words, every yid, as we said, has a godly neshama. The only thing is, as the neshama travels from the highest of heights, which is again the Chachma Ilah, which is the supreme wisdom of Hashem, as it travels world after world, it is ultimately impacted by the stations and journeys, the places which it journeys through till it's born, till it comes down into this world. And therefore, as we gave the example, that different parts of the fetus change as a result of its being the 9 wombs of the months of the mother, the wombs of the mother, the womb of the mother, as opposed to there are certain parts which it stays, it's not impacted by these 9 months. Similarly, the neshama of the Talmid Chacham, starting if we mentioned Moshe Rabbeinu as a classic example, not only a Talmid Chacham, for the true Talmid Chacham, he was the tzaddik, he was the tzaddik of his generation, and his neshama, even though it journeyed through all the different levels and stages and worlds till it came into this world, it wasn't impacted. And as we mentioned, where the pasuk says, right when he was born, it says, BAYT, everybody around him saw this is good, this is special. There was a special glow from this little Moshe Rabbeinu, which he didn't even give his 2 cents in his contribution to his Avodas Hashem, to become close to his Creator. He was already glowing. Why was he glowing? Because the answer is neshama wasn't impacted by, and the journey till it entered in his body was shining, and therefore the whole Moshe Rabbeinu's life was in that way, like the pasuk testifies, that he spoke to God like one speaks to his friend. That's how much godliness was so revealed and so manifest into by Moshe Rabbeinu. So that's how it is by Moshe Rabbeinu, and so too by a true Talmid Chacham. So the Gemara says you want to cleave to the Shekhinah, to the divine presence. It's not compromising over here to cleave to the Talmid Chacham. The Talmid Chacham has within himself that Shekhinah in the most apparent and obvious manner. So cleaving to the Talmid Chacham is cleaving to the Shekhinah ultimately. And we said another idea over here is that because I cleave to the Talmid Chacham, I'm able to tune in to that godly spark, or that godly neshama which existed within me, even though that I was impacted by the journey till I came into this world. From where? From the Chachma Ilah, from Hashem's supreme wisdom. But because I connect to the Talmid Chacham, it puts things in perspective within my neshama, that I am as well, I reveal, not only am connected to the Shekhinah which exists with the Talmid Chacham, but more so I discover, or I reveal, or you could say cultivate that reality that I'm also a part of this neshama, this godly Chachma, the supreme wisdom of Hashem. I'm able to expose it, I'm able to bring it out, because I'm connected to that channel which is connected in an apparent and in a most obvious manner, which is the Talmud Chacham. I'm able to reveal that godly reality within myself. And yet, so he goes on, through cleaving in the Talmud Chacham, the soul, the spirit, and the neshama of the Ami Haaretz, which means a simple person, which again his neshama was impacted by this journey, is connected to miyuchades, and they're one b'mohusan harishin, and in their original state v'sharsham, and their source b'chachmei law, and the supreme wisdom of Hashem. Shahu yizbaruch chachmasi echad, as we said, when we say the wisdom of Hashem, it's not the wisdom of Hashem to the exclusion of the essence of Hashem, because we said hu v'chachmato echad, the Eibishter Hashem and His wisdom are one. Like the Rambam brings hu amada hu yodea, and he is the one who knows the knowledge, and this what he knows is by Hashem. It's all one, as we elaborated last week, why we are compelled to say it by Hashem. So therefore, when we cleave to the Talmud Chacham, we connect it with our own source, which is again the Chachmei Law, the supreme wisdom of Hashem. What about Hapoishim Umerdim in Talmud Chachamim? Those who sin and rebel in the Talmud Chacham, which unfortunately existed in almost all generations. Starting from the first generation when Jewish people went out of Egypt, there was Kairach and Dasan and Aviram. There was the troublemakers in every generation. What about them? How could you be connected? In other words, where did they find their connection? They openly, overtly stood with a constant rebellion to their shorish, to their source, which exists so in such an obvious and a manifest manner in the Moshe of the generation. And in this case, the Moshe Rabbeinu in his times, starting from Moshe Rabbeinu in his times, there were those that stood on a constant basis, with constancy, in their rebellion towards Moshe Rabbeinu. So how do they remain connected? In other words, if you take, for example, the nail, the greatest, we said the nail, for example, as a part of the person's body which is very distant from the core of the soul, from the soul. As we said a few times, the nail, the hair, this is part of the person which if you snip it, it doesn't even hurt. Right? So the greatest, if you think about it, let's use these terms as an example, the greatest pleasure or the greatest honor for the nail is that it seeks and searches its connection with the body, with the system, with the fact of with the humanness which exists, which he's all about, which with the body, which the humanness of the body, the life and the life and the vital organs of the body. The greatest honor for the nail is that it always stands with demonstration that it's not just a nail that is lifeless, but in other words, in the nail, for example, you have the two dimensions. You have the nail, the fact that it's almost lifeless, that you take a scissor and you cut, it doesn't hurt, and then you see another part of the nail that it grows. So you see the fact that it is connected to the body, to the system. So there's two ways that the nail could stand. It could stand with a demonstration that it's lifeless, that I'm not connected to you. Look, take a scissor, cut me, I don't feel anything. The same thing, the hair. Or it could stand with a constant demonstration. No, I am part of this human being. I am part of this person. I am part of this living, vital human being, or a vibrant human being. And look, every day you come, you will see that I grow more and more. It's the same nail, but what is it focusing on? It's focusing on the fact that it's alive, that it's life, it's part of the life of the human condition. Or it's focusing on the fact that it's lifeless. The nail, theoretically, always, on the contrary, because especially it's a nail, it always wants to find its connection to the person, to the body, not the other way around. Similarly, a healthy Jew is that he cleaves to the Talmud Chacham, because he has a neshama within himself. He's part of this godly reality. Like I said, every Jew is part of this godly reality, but he has a choice. Or he's going to be connected to the Moshe Rabbeinu. In other words, to find this godly reality within Moshe Rabbeinu in order not only to be connected to the Moshe Rabbeinu and others, to be connected to this godly reality on a constant basis, but more than that, to generate this Shechina energy from Moshe Rabbeinu into my system, or I will turn around about face and I will rebel in Moshe Rabbeinu. I will rebel in the Tzaddik. I will rebel in the Talmud Chacham. The problem is when you do that, it's similar that you're kind of, in a sense, cutting yourself away. You're on the surface. Dasan Aviram constantly, wherever they could have bothered Moshe Rabbeinu, they did. And Kairach went full force, and they were constantly standing in a state of rebellion towards somebody who was only positive energy for them.
Like the body is for the nail.
Exactly.
What?
Like the body for the nail. They stood doing everything. So what really was going on at the time that Moshe, the David Dasan Aviram or Kairach or all the other troublemakers, let's say, right, exist in every generation. We're using this term so loosely, but that's how it was. They were always found the time and opportunity to make trouble. So when they were making trouble against Moshe Rabbeinu and they disappointed him, you cannot, in the same token as you're trying to receive energy from somebody, someone's giving you a loan, someone's doing you a favor, or someone's giving you charity in the same second, bother him, disturb him. It just doesn't work in relationship with two people. Right. It doesn't exist. No, if it's just a false relationship, so it it's not work. It doesn't have any foundation. But you're talking about a true relationship. You cannot receive something from somebody. It's not just robotic. He's giving and you're giving him a slap in the face. If you're receiving something from somebody, you ought to stand in that position that you are a recipient from that person and you are drawing positive energy from that person. That's how it is in a healthy relationship. But if you're doing just the opposite, you're probably not receiving that energy. And if you're not receiving that energy, there's something dead within you. That doesn't mean ultimately dead. That's why tshuva always helps, because there's never a state of total disconnect. Because, like we say, that even the nail is always part of the system. So a total disconnect doesn't exist, because every Jew ultimately has something, has a neshama. But we're talking about on the surface. On the surface, the only way that connection is alive and well is when you subjugate yourself to the tzaddik, or you cleave to the tzaddik. You have a connection to the tzaddik in a way that because you're drawing the energy, for the positive energy from the tzaddik, to make yourself, your neshama, alive and obvious that it is indeed this godly reality, part of this godly reality. But if you're fighting the tzaddik, what's happening at that time? On one hand, you can't say you're not receiving it all, because you think about the nail, right? The nail could stand in constant demonstration. No, I'm lifeless, but it's still growing. Obviously, if you don't cut it off completely, it'll stop growing. The part which is cut off. But a Jew is never cut off completely. It could stand with that demonstration, saying, "No, I'm not part of it. I'm not part of it. I'm not part of it," but it's still growing. In the same, but is you focused on the growing? You're focused on your being lifeless. In a sense, when the individual fought the Moshe Rabbeinu, he's kind of cutting himself, at least on the surface. Deep down, he's not, because he's always part of it. He's always part of he has a neshama, but on the surface, he is cutting himself away. So what is happening really? In one hand, he's drawing energy from Moshe Rabbeinu, on the other hand, he's fighting Moshe Rabbeinu. So he says over here that this is exactly what's happening. And we find it many times in relationships. Let's say you're given a mandate, or let's say even in a one-time idea. You're told, go give this watch to this person, this gift to this person. And you dislike this person. On the other hand, you have this. Maybe you're paid for it, but you have this job to give this beautiful this gift to this. But because you don't like this person, there's not going to be a normal presentation. Right? Again, we're not talking about people who are. We're talking about in normal, healthy expression of the healthy human being. Right? You like somebody. So the presentation, even you're giving them a watch, which is maybe something physical, but it's not just the watch they're getting. They're getting a smile. They feel the energy of that positive presentation. You don't like somebody, what you usually do sometimes, you can't even look in the face of somebody who you don't like, who you dislike. You literally can't even look into his eyes. On the other hand, you're given this job to give him this watch, let's say. So what you do is, you come over to him, turn about face, and take it. So the person got the watch. but he didn't get the positive energy which goes together with the watch. And many times when you cherish a gift, it's not only you cherish the actual gift, you always connect the gift to the moment you receive the gift, or the overall picture of that positive energy which contributed to this presentation, or the reason why you got the gift. Someone who likes you, loves you, gave you that watch. When you look at the watch, not only are you looking at the time, it always gives you a good feeling. What if you got that same watch from someone who dislikes you? You have the time, but you don't have anything else. There's no vibrant energy, positive energy in the time. So they both have the same watch, but there's a positive as a presentation with love and affection, there's a presentation of dislike. The about face, even though again you have it all, you have the full watch. It's not you got a broken watch. You got it all, but there's no positive energy. That is what is transpiring. That is what happens to the individual who rebels in the Talmid Chacham, to the individual who rebels in the Tzaddik, to the individual who rebels in the Tzaddik or the Talmid Chacham of that generation. Those who sin and rebel in the Talmid Chacham, Yinikas nefesh ruach neshama shalom mibchinas achirayim shel nefesh ruach neshamas Talmid Chachamim. It comes from achirayim, means the about face of the nefesh ruach and neshama of the Talmid Chacham. So the energy is coming through. There's no such a person, no such a thing that a yid is disconnect. Even he's like Korach, he's like Dasan Vaviram, because a yid is a yid, and that's the makeup, that's the chemistry, that's the makeup of the yid, that he has a neshama under all circumstances. There's never a disconnect, and there's always a flow of energy from the Talmid Chacham to the individual, to the simple person. Good evening, how are you? Can I ask you just a question? There's always a connection to the individual, to the every year to the Talmid Chacham. The question is, how is the connection? How is in what manner, in what fashion is the connection? Is the connection? Is the flow of energy from the Talmid Chacham to the individual happening? Is it personal? Is it face to face? It all depends on the yid who is receiving this hashpah, receiving this energy. If he demonstrates his subordinance or his interest of cleaving to the Talmid Chacham, in return, the energy, this Shechina energy, which is so apparent by the Talmid Chacham, flows b'pnimiyut, which means in an inner and lively and vibrant manner, as opposed to those who rebel in the Talmid Chacham, those who sin to the Talmid Chacham. The energy is flowing, but it's all only from the about face of the Talmid Chacham, as someone presents something to somebody who he dislikes. We turn the page, and we come up with this question which the Alter Rebbe is asking. From here up till now, what we learned last week, the week before, the last few classes, what do we derive from all the above up till now? That the neshamas are various. There's no two neshamas which are alike, and it all depends how, in other words, a neshama which is more or less sensitive to the divine, all depends how it was impacted by its journey from where it initiated from, all through all the olamot, all through all the worlds, until it enters into this person. Who makes the choice that this neshama should be similar to the example which we gave, brain or heart, or hand or foot, or the soul, I mean the heel, and or the nail or the hair? Apparently, up till now, God makes the choice. Similar to the fetus itself, when the fetus remains after 9 months of being in the womb of the mother, and part of it becomes hand, foot, nail, heel, and so on. Who makes the choice? You ask the hand, why are you a hand? Why are you not a heart? I don't know. That's how it is. And that's the brain. Why did you merit to remain brain despite you went through 9 months in the womb of the mother? That's how it is. And similar to the heart, in every part, every limb, and every organ. and especially according to this example which the Alter Rebbe gives over here, in this exact same way. Who decides that Moshe Rabbeinu's soul should be like Moshe Rabbeinu, which means it begins Chochmei Ilah, the supreme wisdom of Hashem, and after it travels through all the olamot, and even again we said in every olam there's the 10 levels. It travels through the whole journey again, similar to the process of the fetus in the womb of the mother. So who decides that Moshe Rabbeinu should begin Chochmei Ilah, and after coming into going through all the different stages of all the different olamot, should remain brain, which means to remain Chochmei Ilah? Apparently nobody's choice. That's how it was. The Eibishter decided that Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama is going to, as it comes into this world, as we mentioned, we brought the pasuk, that right when he was born, the whole house was glowing. Moshe Rabbeinu was glowing, rather, the whole house was shining from the glow of Moshe Rabbeinu. He didn't even give, again, his 2 cents. He didn't demonstrate any effort in his service to God, yet the whole house was shining from his glow because his neshama, the connection, or his neshama, the way, as we said, as the neshama comes from the Chochmei Ilah, the supreme wisdom of Hashem, it was obvious and manifest in that little child. It
wasn't even his choice whether he wanted to or not. That's just
exactly. In other words, who decided that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to have that neshama? Nobody. Hashem made that choice. And the same thing with Moshe Rabbeinu, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, or within every generation, as we say, no 2 souls are alike. And we say even in every single generation, there's the Talmid Chachamim, the Tzaddikim, the great Tzaddik, and so on. They probably have greater neshamas. That's why, just parenthetically, we can never judge another Jew. In other words, the Mishnah says to always judge another person favorably. One of the reasons behind it is because I was so excited about God, about davening with a minyan and putting on film. What about the other person? So the truth of the matter is, we all have to fulfill the Torah mitzvahs if we're excited about it or not excited about it. But when you question sometimes the other person's motivation or excitement or his lack of it, you always have to realize that it could be that you have a much easier inclination to be excited about God, godliness, ultimately Torah mitzvahs, more than the other person, because maybe your neshama is a hand while his is a finger.
Even if the other person does more, and you're more excited.
It could be you're more excited, exactly.
Right.
So no one could ever say, oh, because I'm not such a great neshama, maybe therefore I'm not supposed to do so much Torah mitzvahs. Two quick answers to that, the incorrectness of such a statement. First of all, who decided what your neshama looks like? You don't know what level your neshama is, so you can never make that statement. Well, my neshama is probably a heel, or my neshama is like a nail or a hair. Therefore, I don't think I should be doing all the mitzvahs. So first of all, how do you know what neshama level your neshama is? Maybe you're just talking yourself in. You're trying to convince yourself because you want the easy way. But more importantly, we know that Torah was given to all, and we all have that mandate to learn Torah and do mitzvahs, and there's nowhere in the Torah that it says, because I'm not so excited about God and godliness, in other words, because my neshama is more or less, therefore I'm exempt, or I'm compelled to do more in Torah mitzvahs. The expression Torah chas mikolona, we all have the same obligation. Right. But one thing we could understand or appreciate when the Mishnah says, judge another Jew favorably, because it could be that he has a different neshama than you. He does. But higher, lower, different, and so on. So therefore, we can never judge another person, even though to the person himself who is judged, he should know, make no mistake, we're never exempt from any level of or any obligation of Torah mitzvahs, because we believe our neshama is so. First of all, we don't know. And number two, Torah chas l'kona, we got to do it. We got, and Hashem is the only judge which would say if you were more or less excited, and He's the only one who's going to say how much He appreciates your service for the way who you are. But one thing is clear: we are not the one to decide what kind of neshamas come into this world.
Right.
And not out of ourselves, and not of our own children, because it's something which is dictated from above. And here the Alter Rebbe asks a question that we find in Zohar, and in Zohar Chadash, we find it says clear there that Iker Tolu Shikadosh Atzmim Shashtash Mishtafka. So it says very briefly that and it refers to the greatness and the holiness of the neshama, that it depends how a person is going to sanctify himself by the times of intimacy. And which apparently, and it says that's the type of neshama which is going to bring down to this child which is going to be born. So apparently, and it says there in the Zohar, in Zohar Chaz, Masha'enkim b'nei ha'ma'aretz, he says, by the people who are not careful, it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that, in other words, it's a certain sense based on what the halacha says. Again, what the halacha says about sanctification in times of intimacy, and it says Masha'enkim b'nei ha'ma'aretz, we do not follow these examples or these suggestions or these rules in halacha. They do not draw in such a high level of soul to the child which would be born, which seems to contradict everything what we said till now. Here we see that there is a choice: who is the hand, who is the brain, who is the heart.
Yes.
And here it says, right, and here it seems to, and what we learn up till now,
some say.
Exactly, we have some say in the matter until what we learned till now, and the way it is an example which the Alter Rebbe gave, there is no say in the hand or the head or the heart what is going to become what. And the same thing, there is no say from our perspective and point of view who is going to be the Moshe, who is going to be the Avraham, who is going to be the Tzaddik, who is going to be the Talmud Chacham, and so on, or that Neshama, the Talmud Chacham, and so on. So Alter Rebbe says over here, it's not a contradiction. That the truth of the matter is, when it comes to the Neshama itself, we do not have a say in the matter. What the Zohar over here says is regarding the garment over the neshama.
What do you mean, the garment?
What means over the garment over the neshama? So it says, let's just try to see in the text over here, and we'll try to explain it to the best of our ability. There is no nefesh, ruach, and neshama, which means the soul, which is the three components of the soul. It doesn't have a garment from the essence of his father and mother. And all the mitzvahs which he does, all is all through that garment. Even the hashpa, which means even what is given to the person in the duration of his life from heaven, if it's parnasa, if it's blessings, physical blessings, spiritual blessing, everything is through this garment. Let's take it just simply. When a person could be healthy, and a person could be well put together physically, but it's a winter day and you don't have a good coat, as an example. You can't say, well, I'm put together, I do my exercise, I'm in good shape, I look good, I feel good, and he or she is truly healthy. But if you're going to go out on a winter day when it's very cold, without any garment, without any coat, it's not going to do well for you. You are going to be vulnerable to catching a cold, to chas v'shalom becoming ill, and fever, and so on, even though you could be truly healthy. And you truly can be a healthy human being. I'm just going to try to say, just give me a moment. Similarly, so in other words, additional to being internally healthy, you have to have, in life, you have to have the right garment, the right clothing for the time, for winter, for summer, for spring, or for fall. Every weather constitutes a different type of clothing. Also, not only regarding cold and hot, how you present yourself among people. If you're going to wear something clean, again, you could be a clean person, and you put on a non-clean garment. First of all, you yourself are not going to feel very comfortable, and mainly the way you're going to interact with somebody. Someone goes by and wants to develop a relationship with you, they say, oh, he's not even sensitive to that stain, that obvious stain of his jacket. He's probably not somebody I want to hang around with. Then you could be clean and you're not in style. Like an example, not everything is really truly according to Torah all this important, right? So we're trying to say, just as an example, when you put yourself together, if you're wearing something, you're not going to put on a winter coat, even if it's a beautiful coat on a hot summer day, and you're not going to put on a little jacket, even if it's a nice expensive jacket on a cold winter day. The garment is also important. In generally, the whole idea of garment is something which is incorporated into reality from the time of Chet Tzadas, right? After the Chet Tzadas, to the extent that human convention dictates that people wear clothes, which means it's not just something, okay, someone has to make money, so we're going to have stores of clothing. It's part and parcel of our presentation to guard ourselves from negative influence and how we present ourselves to the outside. Similarly, there's the neshama, which is the core, similar to the person. It's healthy because it's a part of God, especially when it has the ability to cultivate that connection or make that connection more apparent, more open, especially through connecting to the Talmud Chacham, who dictates what type of level of neshama you're going to be. It's all pre-dictated and predetermined what type of neshama you're going to have. But in the same token, the neshama needs a garment in order to function in this world. Spiritually, physically, he says even the shefa which Hashem gives to the neshama all comes through that garment. And this is what the Zohar says, that when you're dealing it doesn't refer to the neshama itself. The neshama itself is not by choice. The neshama is all predetermined. Whose neshama, what kind of neshama is going to enter in your body the moment you're born, or from the time when Hashem decides you're going to be born. What is dependent on the sanctity of the parents, the father and mother, is regarding that garment. Is it going to be a crass garment, or is it going to be a refined garment? If it's a crass garment, there's a problem. Why is there a problem? Because the neshama, that neshama energy, which is supposed to come through in the life of the person to motivate itself, to excite himself or herself to do Torah mitzvahs, it has a hard time coming through that garment, because that garment is a thicker garment, just like you have to puncture a hole through a napkin, through a cloth, or through a piece of wood, or through a piece of metal. If it's a piece of metal, you could ultimately, with a lot of work and effort, you'll be able to puncture a hole. But it's going to take much longer. Similarly, that garment, is it going to be a refined garment? Is it going to be with synchronicity of the neshama, or it's going to be more of a crass garment that the neshama dikait, which means that neshamaness, which is supposed to come through in this journey, this long journey of the yid in this world, as it needs to come through in order to get excited every day to put on tefillin, or to do this mitzvah and that mitzvah, and to learn Torah, and to do all the things, to stay away from the things which a person is supposed to stay away from. The energy of neshama is supposed to come through. And if it has an unrefined garment, the neshama could be very holy. You could even have a neshama, something like the brain itself, or a heart type of a neshama. Oh, but because of the garment, it's heavy, has a hard time to come through. And therefore we find, okay, you know what, I'll just go ahead before we conclude, because the conclusion is going to enrich this, what we're saying. Go ahead.
I wanted to say, so you kind of answered my question, but just to make sure for myself. So there could be a holy neshama and, let's say, a garment of benida, right? Like, so it could be a holy neshama, yes, and a very, very bad garment.
Yes. By the way, when you're saying an example which is even, just to keep it in the right perspective, it's even worse than what he says over here, because here it's not only that's a halachic transgression, right, and here he speaks about expression of kedusha, sanctity.
What's halachic transgression?
Halachic transgression means to say a relationship with a nida is prohibited. It's a clear transgression. It's prohibition. The same scenario could play out that a neshama, holy neshama,
holy neshama, and
it could probably happen. I'm just saying what he says over here is not only something which is a halachic transgression. He says the whole experience could be a little more refined, sanctified, as opposed to in a crass and gross manner. So you give me an example of that, but I'm just saying it's not the exact wording, but it could happen as well. Because I'll just show you the words over here. Just like if we finish up, you'll fill in whatever you said, but just maybe a little answer what you're asking as well. But he says, "V'mikadosh atzmai." If a person once sanctifies himself, yamshich levush kadosh l'nishmas beno. He will draw a holy, refined neshama to the soul of his son. And he says, "Afilu neshama g'dayla." Even it's a very high. The next page, it's a very lofty neshama. Tzricha. It still needs the kiddush aviv. It still needs the sanctification of a father or parents because of his garments. What about the neshama itself? The neshama atzma, the neshama itself. Hine lefa'amin, at times, nishmas adam govaya le'ein kates. The neshama of a very lofty person. And he says le'ein kates means that infinitely more lofty than the norm. It means infinite.
Explain.
What means explains, which means how much greater could one neshama be from the other? It could be infinitely greater. Infinitely means, if you look at, we don't have a clear understanding of infinity. We deal with, go to the ocean, right? And you see how much water is it. You right away see well, those infinite amount of drops of water. It's kind of an accurate statement, but it's not ultimately accurate because it's not infinite, truly infinite. Nothing in this finite world is infinite. But 1 to a billion, it's very distant. It's still not infinite because the whole billion is comprised from 1. 1 to a trillion is much more distant, but it's still not infinitely distant. When we deal with ourselves and God, the difference of ourselves and God is not just God is greater a little bit, He's infinitely greater. What is infinity? I don't know, because we are finite. Our own makeup is finite. We are part and parcel of a finite world. But the concept we can understand that God, when we think about God, He's not billion times greater than us, trillion times greater than us. There's an infinite difference between us and God, right? So similarly in neshamas, when we say about differences in neshamas, it's not just a little greater, even more greater, billion times higher one neshama from another. The difference could be infinite. Now, even when you look at the example that Alter Rebbe give, the difference of the finger and the heart, you could use to a certain degree, to a certain extent, as an infinite difference of the importance and the vitality which exists in the finger and in the heart. Even though you can say, well, it's infinite, well, they're both part of the mortal human being, which is by definition finite. That's true. But if you look at it qualitatively, you look at it, the importance, the significance of the energy that goes into the finger and the heart, you could even use as an infinite difference, because the finger, a person could live without a finger, can't live without a heart, because you see that, well, that's infinitely greater. Similarly, when you talk about neshamas, when you say a difference of one neshama and another neshama, it's not just even greater or billion times greater. It could be infinitely greater. And he says over here that at times a neshama of a high person, le'ein kates, a neshama which is infinitely greater than the normal neshama, Bali is benai, could ultimately be the son of Adam Nibze v'shafel, a shameful and a very lowly person. How so? This is all what we learned. Because the level of neshama is dictated from above, it's predetermined from above. What parents contributed is the garment. Hence, the neshama itself could be a neshama nishmas adam gaveya, a very lofty neshama of somebody not only just a bit greater than the norm, but le'ein kates infinitely. His neshama could be infinitely greater than the norm. That could be the son of a shameful, lowly person, because it's not dependent on the father of the level of neshama, even though the garment, yes, but the neshama not. Because the neshama could be a benoshel adam nivzeh v'shafal, like the Rizal writes in his Sefer Kodetayr in Parshas Vayera, on the Parsha Vayera, the Taiva Mitzvahs, and in the Sefer of Taimei HaMitzvahs, on Parshas Bereshis, he speaks and he makes it clear that this can be a scenario of a child born to parents which are nivzim v'shvelim, but yet he could have an neshama gavela in case. Have a great night, everyone.